Found footage sets off two narratives for us to follow. That of Hayley and Hayden Conway and the Party 91st incident, and the more modern day one of Ivan and his friends who, having noticed some strange footage in the tapes they were transferring, accidentally stumbled into an incident that it seems is being hidden from them. Although they are separated by a space in time of about 15 years, it's through the Ivan narrative that we get hints of what happened to the Conways, so they can't really be too separated with just this video. So let's start off by establishing what we know and can reasonably assume about the two groups. Talking about the Conway siblings first, Hayley is the older of the two siblings, probably by a few years, if the fact that she has custody over her younger brother and can work to support them both is taken into consideration. Well, I can't find any information on what the laws were like in 1990. The modern child labour laws in Virginia suggest that Hayley is, at the very least, 16, which seems to be the minimum age a person can work gainful employment hours without having to work around school hours. I'd guess that she's probably older than 16 though. We do know for certain what age Hayden was though, having had the Party 91st incident occur at his 11th birthday party. At the moment their parents are both out of the picture, which explains why Hayley is raising Hayden herself. During the interview with Arthur Manchack, he asked about them and she explains that they went on a mission trip a few years ago. For those unaware, like myself, a mission trip is what a missionary will go on, usually abroad in order to perform charity work or to promote their faith in foreign communities. This, combined with the Virgin Mary statue, which I wonder is a sly nod to Hayley's previous name of Mary, and Amazing Grace being at the very start of the video, suggests to me that the Conway siblings grew up in a very religious household. Whether or not Hayley and Hayden still practice the faith is unknown though, although there is a good chance that after their parents weren't coming back, they might have had help from their local church community, at least at first. This also makes me think that Hayley is over 16, as unless they were left with grandparents or other relatives, both parents are unlikely to have gone on the same trip at the same time unless Hayley was old enough to take care of things by herself, at least for a little while. I do think that grandparents and other relations are currently not in the picture though, because she does make mention of raising her brother on her own. Hayley seems to be struggling as of 1990 though, as she tells Hayden that it's been a rough few months and she seems glad to get anything at the amusement centre, even if it isn't what she'd applied for. It also seems like the Conways have visited the amusement centre or a Little Res location at some point, as the first section of the video ends with Hayden saying he wants to see Little Red again. Because of this, I do wonder if part of Hayley's struggles have been financial, working all hours at the diner she mentions working at just to keep a roof over their heads and keep Hayden fed. Being hired at Little Red's amusement centre at the start of the year, because we know from one of Lucy's notes that she was working there by January 12th, seems to be a way out of these troubles, although, as we see with the billboard, it instead led to something tragic, and Hayley is hinted to have made contributions towards it, which led to her taking her own life. But what was it she did? Jumping ahead now to 2005 and to our curious Illusion Plus employees, we know that the group consists of 4 people who seem to be friends: Ivan Carpenter, Tonya Cassidy, Jesse Rowe, and Eric Love. We also have mentions of 2 of their superiors, Alan Rutnick and Alice Manchack. Ivan and Tonya are currently at work on the then recent transfer project, while Jesse is one of the people tasked with tracking down old Little Red's merchandise and footage for the sake of Illusion Plus's initiative. Eric also seems to be working as part of the transfer project, if what Ivan says about Eric only needing to comb through it is true. However, on the topic of Eric, he hasn't yet played a role in the reboot from what we've seen, having been put out of commission for a while due to jumping off a flat roof, which has led to him having some time off work and becoming unreachable by both phone and email for now. This suggests to me that Eric at least was at university, and there's a possibility that some of the other 3 were too. Ivan, of course, is the one whose comments we follow in the main video. Having noticed some odd footage in the video he was transferring, He tried to talk to Alice, who had been at Illusion Plus when Hayley was around, only to have them act afraid and tell him to simply cut it. It even got to a point where they were considering stopping the transfer project entirely, but Ivan was determined to find out what was going on. Using the cut-in footage of Hayley's interview, he looked up her name and found out she was connected to an urban legend about the amusement centre, and it had something to do with the Party 91st incident. He shared what he was finding with his friends, especially Tonya, who was also transferring tapes with him. Tonya too began to find weird footage, and the two would get together with Jesse to share findings, but Jesse himself was more skeptical of their finds, feeling they ought to listen to Alan, who seems to have been their direct supervisor. Ivan seemed to have little respect for Alan, typical of a young employee as regards to their manager. However, just as he was trying to determine what was in the last inserted clip in his tape, he vanished suddenly on December 30th, 2005. Tonya in particular was distressed by this, having seen some of the footage herself, and was sure that it was the same killer who had committed the Party 91st incident. Then, while on a phone call to Jessie, it seems that she too also went missing. We also get to see a galley-based web game in one of the extra videos, and as I mentioned before, it reminds me very much of a similar galley-based game in the original series, a game connected to when Tonya also went missing. This makes me wonder if she has anything to do with the "I'm sorry" we hear at the end of that video, or maybe it was Hayley and Tonya was attacked or killed because she managed to hear the other woman's regrets. This is an incident that took place in the amusement centre around the start of the 1990s, and seems to have been covered up, or at least de-emphasised around the area by Illusion Plus so as not to spoil business. However, we don't yet have any sort of date as to when it actually took place, although it must have been after January 12th, after Hayley was hired, as she is said to have contributed to it. Like it was before, from what we know of the incident from the things we've covered here, we know that Party 91st was a massacre of people that took place at a birthday party. We also know it was a shooting from two of the inserted pieces of footage from the main video. First, we have the child escaping into Humming Humpty's playhouse, who at the start of the video says that they just started shooting, and the final piece of footage before the credits roll shows a man bursting through a door with a rifle and shooting at people running through an indoor car parking area. We also know that the birthday party was for Hayley's younger brother, Hayden Conway, which places it as taking place either in 1990 or very early 1991. This is because when Hayley had her interview in 1990, we know Hayden was already in the 5th grade, the age when children are 10 to 11. The billboard for information about Hayden's killing states that he was 11, so unless he had the party before his birthday, this places Party 91st most likely in the year of 1990. We also know that many people died, including children, as Tonya states that she saw bodies of children in footage she viewed, as well as Hayden himself, but not Hayley, who we hear took her life as a result of contributing to it in some way, and therefore probably after the incident. As to Hayley's contributions to the incident, although nothing concrete is outlined, we can make a guess at what it was. The employee back corridors are mentioned, and it is emphasised to keep them locked at all times they are not in use. However, during the little red puppet part, at one point the puppet is seemingly cut off by a voice asking, "Wait, is that door unlocked?" An overlaid footage of someone looking through a doorway in a corridor that appears Spartan enough to be an employee area. This, as well as one of the possible interpretations of the puppet's message mentioning "unlocked," strongly seems to hint that the thing Hayley did was leave a door unlocked. A door that gunmen or someone associated with them then used to help them stage the Party 91st incident. We also learn a bit about some of Harmon's wider family, as well as his company Illusion Plus, and of course Little Reds as a brand. Firstly, we learn the names of two new Manchack family members, Arthur Manchack and Alice Manchack. We know for certain that Arthur Manchack is Harmon's son, but Alice is still unknown. It's possible she is also a child of Harmon, but there is also the possibility that she married into the family and simply took on the Manchack name as a result. We do know that both of them worked at the amusement centre in 1990 though, as a result of the Haley interview footage having a picture of Alice visible as the Employee of the Month, and Arthur Manchack being the person to give Haley her interview. We also know that Arthur had at least been doing work for his father since before 1985, as he is mentioned in the 1985 training tape as being the creator of many of Little Red's friends. And a concept sketch we see gives a date of 1980, so it's possible he started around then. We don't know for sure when Alice also joined the company, but it might have been in 1988 if we assume the part blanked out in this back hall was about Alice joining. Ivan seems to have seen or heard something in this footage that led him to believe it was after 1985. And given that he wrote it before the second back hall on the same screen in which he discovered who Haley had been, it's not likely to have been anything she said about herself. This leaves only things Arthur said and Alice's image as being what could have clued him in on a year. By 2005, Alice was still working for Illusion Plus, we know, but we don't know about Arthur for certain. However, I suspect he does still do some work for Illusion Plus, or is still involved in some way. I say this because despite the transfer being unfinished, we can reasonably assume that Ivan had been going through the tape and working on tidying it up, right up until the first bit of inserted footage, which comes directly after Arthur is mentioned. After this, Ivan was seeking out more odd footage in the tape, so he wouldn't have been working on tidying it up as meticulously. This makes me think he would have trimmed out a reference to Arthur if the younger Manchack wasn't still about, although the fact that the photo of Arthur is clearly still the original one used in the 1985 tape makes me wonder if the sudden inclusion of strange footage meant Ivan got distracted from either editing in a more up-to-date photo, or even cutting the section out entirely. And on the subject of Arthur's inclusion in the training tape, we learn that he played a fairly important role. He designed many of the characters who are Little Red's friends. The concept art image we saw was dated from 1980, so it's possible that that is when many of the other characters were first designed by Arthur. Indeed, looking at the credits for artists and modelers, we can't see any versions dated before the 1980s. The concept art is also for Little Red and is marked as Gen 2. So it's possible that Arthur redesigned his father's own character of Little Red around the same time too. I do, however, maybe see hints of parts of Arthur's character, though we don't really see much of him in the main video or the extra content that came with it. Although it is a stretch and influenced by what the series showed us in the original version, I do wonder if Arthur maybe really likes Haley, if you get my meaning. We only have evidence of him interacting with her twice, but both times he does her a favour. He sticks up for her when she discovers the broken custard cola vending machine, and he even schedules her a certain shift so she can do the things she actually has skill in despite the man upstairs apparently being less keen on having a woman working on the robots. If Haley really is who Mary was in the original series, then her story must follow similar beats, and Mary had hints of having someone infatuated with her. So if the story is the same, could this be Arthur in the reboot? Speaking of the man upstairs, I think this is how Arthur is referring to his father, the CEO of Illusion Plus and creator of Little Red, Harmon Manchack. Though he doesn't appear during the videos, we learn a few things about him and how Little Reds came to be. Similar to the original series, Little Red started off as a costume Harmon made to wear to scare naughty children and reward those who behaved at a local fair, based on a local story of a wolfman. Upon growing popular, he then used the Wolfman as a mascot to open a diner in 1955, and named the character after the old fairy tale. He then pushed his vision ahead to grow the business, resulting in the amusement centre of the 1980s we know of. Harmon was an ambitious man and a dreamer. However, we also see that his ambition could sometimes result in him proposing ideas that weren't so successful, such as the custard cola drink of 1989 that resulted in failure. The facts we see from Ashcroft even shows other people in the company were warning Harmon not to try the drink idea, yet he doesn't seem to have even waited for a reply to the proposal, given we saw bottle test images and a vending machine for the drink appeared in the employee areas of the amusement centre for testing. This means that at the very least the drink went through recipe planning, manufacture and bottling for the test batch, money that ended up being wasted in the end. As I said when we looked at the facts, Ashcroft's language makes me think that while not struggling, Illusion Plus was having to try and minimise wasteful spending to keep the company healthy around the end of the 1980s. Running the amusement centre couldn't have been cheap, with the amount of space and attractions it had to keep tidy and functional, after all. This also suggests that the licensing out of the characters was most likely a path to keeping a decent cash flow coming into Illusion Plus. There's also a hint that he might have been old-fashioned in his ideas of what sort of work men and women could be doing, at least if we believe his son Arthur. After all, while it wouldn't be out of the question for Harmon to be the sort to believe only men could do engineering work, given we know he was old enough to open the first Little Reds in 1955, it is Arthur who attributes this idea of him not being fond of a female engineer to his father. I do wonder if maybe Arthur might secretly resent his father in some way or feel in his shadow. After all, he has gained the name Little Manchack among the other employees of the amusement centre, which could make him feel lesser in some way. There's also a hint that Alice might already know something about Haley and the tapes, given the reaction Ivan talks about when he tries to show her what he's seeing. This makes me wonder if she's scared to just talk about Haley because of her relation to the Party 91st incident, or if she's scared because she saw similar cut-in footage and messages in Little Red's media after Party 91st. It might mean that Haley or Hayden has tried to reach out before to Alice, who was too scared to investigate any further back then. We also get a little bit of an update on the plot thread brought up by the Bravo Beaver inquiry document that an owner of a rival family entertainment venue in the Wavedon Mall was planning to undermine their competition. The documentation and memos chain of extra content follows the story of two employees of the amusement centre over a period of about a month from the end of December 1989 to the end of January 1990. We have Lucy Calibers, who seems to be a supervisor or in some position of trust in the amusement centre, and Chance Felshivy, who appears to be employed in the Sonia Studios part of the building. Given the translation we already know for Chance's last name being Russian for false, it's likely that Chance Felshivy is not his real name, although whether he fakes just his surname or all of it is uncertain. What we do find out is that Chance was paid by Daniel Breach, the aforementioned rival owner, to get hired by Little Red and cause some minor disruptions. Given that we predict he was hired into Sonia, it's probable that Chance has mechanical experience which would make him a perfect person to go in and sabotage machinery in the amusement centre. It started with sabotaging things on the floor, the water bucket at Hansel and Gretel's waterworks and for arcade machines, but eventually resulted in the total destruction of the custard cola vending machine that was installed in the back of house for employees, something Lucy describes as being like a crime scene. For me, this makes me think that Chance is either not great at thinking things through, because of course Illusion Plus was going to figure out it was an employee doing things on purpose when a machine out of reach of the public got destroyed that badly, or else Chance was being pressured heavily by Breach to cause some bigger damage. It is also worth noting, however, that Chance at least seemed to truly think custard cola was a good drink, better than Coke in his opinion. It could be that he either chose to destroy it because he viewed it as a way for Little Reds to become even more popular, or Breach did. The destruction of the machine could have been a key factor in the drink being a failure if Illusion Plus gave up on it after the incident. Tragically, it seems that Chance actually did like Lucy, and she liked him back. This is to the point that a budding relationship seemed to be blooming between the two, before the destruction of the vending machine, which resulted in the police being called, and Chance likely being arrested for the destruction because of the CCTV camera pointed towards the machine. He did at least manage to leave her one last note though, confessing everything to her and making sure that she knew he actually did care about her. Lastly, I'm going to discuss a couple of other things that I couldn't quite fit into the bigger subcategories we've just gone over. Firstly, the question of the editor captions we see throughout the video. While we can identify that the larger messages are most likely from Ivan, who we know was working on transferring this training tape to DVD, there are other smaller captions that appear throughout the video and seem to be addressing the viewer directly. Are you watching? Please look. Another one, this one from 1990? Turn it off. I don't want you to watch anymore. And all of these I've noticed seem to be in the same font. A font completely different to any of the ones used in the longer messages that we either know or can reasonably assume to be from Ivan. As we're being told the same story as before, it seems like someone is stuck within the videos or media of Illusion Plus and Little Reds. But who is it that is communicating with us now? Before, it was Mary, the character who is now Haley. But as of now, I don't know if there's much evidence to point to her, or indeed any other character. What's clear is that whoever they are, at first, wants the viewer to watch, wants to show the inserted footage to them, but then towards the end seems to change their mind. If the Little Red's puppet's message is, "You are not the one," it would fit with the final two captions that ask the viewer to turn off, that whoever is leaving the messages doesn't want the viewer to see anymore. The caption before Haley's interview also confuses me. The caption reads almost confused and almost as if whoever left it wasn't expecting it there. It's in the font of the second message lever, but almost sounds as if it was written by someone editing the video. Speaking of the cut-in footage from the video, the first clip is from inside a room that appears to be in the back of the amusement centre. While the identity of the sounds makes me think a lost child might have fallen foul of something nasty, I can't really guess too much at what. However, I can say that this seems to be the Pink Room, a fact we can confirm if we look to the Welcome to the Pink Room document and compare it to the model we see there that we know is of the Pink Room. The positions of the graphics of Gally and Little Red's faces match up, as does the relative proportions of what we can see of the room. The Little Red graphic is a different one though, but this doesn't mean that it wasn't changed to a different, more modern one after the model was made by Harmon. We also get to see footage that confirms another attraction inside of the amusement centre not seen on the signs in the training tape of 1985, that by the time of the Party 91st incident was closed. The Humming Humpty Playhouse. What this seems to be is an indoor soft play area and contains a giant figure of Humming Humpty. Given that the Sonia Creations logo is on the closed sign outside, there's a possibility that the Humming Humpty inside was robotic, maybe set to move about and spout lines on a loop to entertain the children. We do indeed see its mouth moving as the child passes by it, and something in front of it does light up, lending some weight to this assumption. Given that it wasn't on the signs in the 1985 video, but was closed by 1990/1991, either it was opened and closed during that time period, or it just wasn't a big enough attraction to merit getting onto the sign. Or possibly by the time we see the half-edited tape, Ivan had already replaced old footage with an update as to what those signs looked like in 2005. As to why it closed, well, we know Humming Humpty was not the most popular character of the Woodland Pals. The giant figure, or robot inside of the play areas, likely scared the children and led to the playhouse being closed for some kind of refurbishment, or just to sit abandoned so Illusion Plus wouldn't need to pay to light an attraction that wasn't well frequented. I'm also curious about the final hidden video, the No Place Like Home videotape. Unlike the others, Arthur Mardrow is unsure about this video, not being able to place it within what he knows about Little Red and Illusion Plus, nor being very sure of whose home video or kitchen this is. What he seemed to show is that someone was lurking outside of a glass door at a house, a man peering in through the window. However, what their intentions are is unclear. It could be someone stalking another person in this story. Or some have suggested it might be Ivan lurking outside of one of his friends' houses. It does bear resemblance to the pictures of Ivan we have from the original series, and the spectrogram does spell out "found him," which seems to be the answer to the questions "have you seen him?" and "where is Ivan Carpenter?" Finally, we have one of Ivan's friends, Jesse, mentioning another incident in which children turned up dead. We know scant details about it, other than that their bodies were found in a locked garage in a storage facility, and that one of their parents had the name of Bridge or Bridget. The way Jesse speaks of them too makes it sound like he at least knows this person. He also says that whoever did it was never found. This makes me wonder if someone involved with Party 91st or something else also was the killer of these children, and the incident might become more relevant with more videos to come. And with that, I wrap up my analysis of found footage and all its bonus content. Weird to think, in a way, this is the second time I've dissected it. Thank you to my guest VAs Gold City, Peculiar Glasses and Pip, who helped me lend voice to Thomas Ashcroft, Lucy Calibers and Chance Felshivi. I've included links for all of them down in the description in case you want to check them out. As for a conclusion, all I can say is that it's pretty much confirmed now that this is the same story we were once told with the original series, just rejigged and tweaked a little. I'm most interested in the roles that Arthur and Alice Manchack have to play, as well as seeing if Jesse ends up seemingly distancing himself from his friend group as JJ once did, and if Eric is left alone to be the person Ivan after death reaches out for. Whether Chance Felshivi ever knew Luke Mardrout at any great extent in his short time at the amusement centre, or indeed if any of the previous elements from before are brought back or discarded. I guess we'll just have to wait for the next video to find out. See you all at Little Red's Marine Mania, my friends.